Hello, students. Today we'll be talking about the characteristics of living things, and we would be using seven observable characteristics to know if something is living or not living. So, this is a living organism. We think so. So, we have to know if it's actually living or not. And how do we know this? We check if it does move. Then we have to know if it does respire. Then we have to check, does it excrete? Does it feed? Or is that nutrition? What about reproduction? Does it reproduce? Does it sense things in the environment? Means, does it have sensitivity? What about irritability? They mean the same thing. When you talk about irritability and sensitivity, it means that they have the capacity to feel the changes in the environment. Do they grow? These are the basic things we have to see before we conclude that something is a living thing or not. We need to see if it does move, does it respirate, does it feed, does it excrete, reproduction, sensitivity, and growth. This is Ms. Green. We have a mnemonic or a way to remember the seven characteristics of living things. Amongst them is movement, respiration or respire, sense, growth, reproduction, excretion, nutrition. So this together form what we know as Ms. Green. Ms. Green is a representation for the seven characteristics of living things. So the N is for movement. All living things move. They respond to the environment by moving. For example, a fish would move away from predators if it swam close by. The only way, some people might ask you that, okay, what about trees? Do trees move? So are we going to call trees a living thing when it does not move? We would say it does move. The way it moves, it's growing. And when the wind blows, it moves from one place to another. And also, in a tree, we have a section in it that helps to move materials. Like, for example, if you have a tree, the tree has what we call the xylem that helps to transfer water or nutrient from the soil to the plants, shoot, and the leaves. Then after the food has been made, which has been stored in the leaf, the phloem helps to move the food down to the roots for the root system to have enough nutrient to continue with their own activities. So this is movement. So movement happens in both plants and animals. Now, for example, if there's a fish that's about to eat up a smaller fish, the fish is going to react, is going to move away. So this is called movement. So this is a way in which organisms do move. Respiration, all living things respire. That means they use oxygen to break down food to get energy for the body cells to use. For example, when organisms make their food by a process of either photosynthesis or by getting food from plants, this food is being stored in form of glucose. So when respiration happens, the glucose reacts with oxygen. The glucose reacts with oxygen to give carbon dioxide plus water. So this is a way in which all organisms get energy. And that's the reason it says all living things respire. That means they get the energy by reacting oxygen with glucose to produce energy. So energy is being produced from this reaction. So this is something this is what we refer to as respiration, and this happens in all living organisms, all living things. And also it says that the fish absorbs oxygen via the gills, and it uses that for respiration. Carbon dioxide, which is the waste product of respiration, passes out of the fish through its gills. And it takes in oxygen. The oxygen reacts with the glucose, which you already have in the fish, and it does release carbon dioxide plus water, and that gives energy to the fish to continue with its normal daily activities. So, and also sensitivity. Sensitivity is a way by which organisms sense their surroundings. The fish, for example, can sense what is around it. And this is important for the organisms, the fish to find food, and also to avoid predators which might be in the environment. There's no way organisms can know if it does not have the sense organs. The sense organs are 5. We have 5 sense organs, and they are the eyes, the tongue, the nose, the skin, and the ear. So these are the 5 organs which we use to sense. So organisms that has these organs to sense, or any of these organs, to feel the environment, to feel changes, or to feel the presence of food, or the presence of predators, we would say they are sensitive, and that's called sensitivity. Like, for example, this is an organism. So if the fish comes nearer to it, because the fish is aware it's around in the community, in the environment. There's no way the fish could know this if it does not have the sense organs like the eyes to see, or some other parts of its body to feel the presence of the food. So another characteristic is growth. All living things grow. They usually start from a smaller, and from a smaller stature, and they get bigger and bigger. They develop through the life cycle. The fish, for example, grew from an egg and then will continue to grow until it reaches the maturity stage. Now, this is the fish before, but after some time, it becomes bigger in size and it matures more. And also, we should know that all organisms, all living things should reproduce. The reason why organisms reproduce is for the organisms to continue to live, to continue to be in existence. Because if organisms fail to reproduce, then there will be extinction. Extinction means the organism will no longer exist anymore. So all living things reproduce. They will reproduce offspring, which we call children. The fish will lay eggs, which can be fertilized by a male fish. This is known as sexual reproduction. These eggs would then turn into their offspring. So now, for example, it's going to lay the eggs here. Here's an example of the egg. Then what happens is the egg becomes fertilized. And after that, there are lots of offspring from the same fish. So this is called reproduction. All living things should reproduce so that they can increase the number of organisms present in the world. So also, all living things should excrete. Excretion means they will get rid of waste materials. They have to excrete the waste materials from the body. Excretion could be in many forms. It could be in form of gas, which is carbon dioxide from the body. It could be poop. It could also be sweat. When you sweat, that means you're also excreting the waste materials from the body. So all these things allows the body, the metabolic activities or the metabolism to keep on taking place in the body. So we have to maintain the body system. And the only way to maintain the body system is through excretion when there's a lot of waste materials in the body. And when you lack food, you demand full food. So excretion is one of the qualities or the properties of a living thing. So another one we need to know is if living things do not get rid of waste products, they would accumulate in the body and poison the organism, and the organism is likely to die. This is an example of poop, carbon dioxide, which is being excreted from the body. Nutrition, all living things need to get food. We have ways in the living things do this in different ways. The fish will get its nutrient from food that it eats. It will then use the nutrient to support its life. Nutrition can be divided into two, which is autotrophic or heterotrophic. Example of this is the fish, because it cannot make its own food, but the autotrophic is plants, which are the producers. They make their own food, and that's why we call them autotrophic organisms. But the heterotrophic are organisms that do not have the capacity to make their own food. They depend on what the plants make. So also, we need to know, this is the way the fish, that worm looks nutritious, so I want to get it. So it goes to get it. So the next time you're wondering if something is living or not, think about what Miss Grain. Miss Grain means movement, respiration, which is respire, sense or sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. If you find all these things or any of these things in an organism, then the organism is a living thing. But if you don't find any of all this in an organism, then the organism is not a living thing. Or we say that thing, the object, not the organism, because we say the object is not a living thing. But if you find any of these qualities or characteristics in a thing, we should know it is a living thing. And sometimes we want to complete some graphics. We have some questions here. Someone might ask you, now, if sponges are living, why do they not show any characteristic of living thing or Miss Grain? So how do we give an answer to that kind of a question? Is wait, what happens if I see something moving, but I don't see it eating or excreting? Is it still alive? What about sponges? My teacher said that they're alive. How can this be true? The only sponge that I've ever seen eating, moving, and respiring is SpongeBob SquarePants. But he's a character from a kid's show. So the meaning is, if you've been asked this kind of question, what do you say? If you see something moving, but does not eat, doesn't excrete, is it moving? Is it a living thing? Is it alive? No. You must make sure that you find all these qualities or the characteristic of a living thing in it. Not all the things that move would eat. Not all the things that move would excrete. You can move a car, but if the car is moving itself, if you have a car which is automatic car, we cannot say because the car is moving is a living thing. No. And if you have a tree which is not moving, we cannot say because the tree is not moving, it's not a living thing. No. So we must make sure that we find to know that trees have some part of its body which is moving, like the water which moves in it, but the car which is moving is not moving by itself. It's being controlled by a remote control or some other things. But if it's moving by itself and nothing is moving it, then it has to be a living thing. Now let's go deep to talk about the sponges themselves. Sponges are organisms that live in the ocean. They are huge. This is the size of a sponge. Sponge shows some characteristics of living things, which we're going to discuss. Sometimes it's difficult to see all the characteristics of living things in every organism. Yes, not all the time. You're not going to see all these characteristics in all organisms. You're going to see some, you're not going to find some. Sponges, for example, do not walk around and actively catch their food in the way the fish does. And how does it do? The sponges, what the sponges do is we call them the filter feeder. And how do they feed? They take in the organisms through different ways. Now let's take a look at the video we have here. Now, this is an example of a sponge, and the sponge is in the ocean.
Coming up next on Jonathan Bird's Blue World.
Now we call them the filter feeder. The way they feed by filtering is they take in liquid from the ocean and they absorb all the nutrients in that liquid and expel the liquid from this area. So they have very tiny holes in the body which they use to absorb or take in water or liquid. So when they take in the water, all the nutrients in the water has been absorbed into the sponge, then the remaining is been removed from the spaces. Then you're gonna see what happens afterwards.
Jonathan explores the biology of
now you can see
you
immediately you see the coloring has been expelled after it's got through the sponge itself. So this is the way the sponge does feed. It doesn't move, but it's feeding. So this is something we need to know about sponges to let us know they are living things. So it's not compulsory that we have to see all the qualities or all the characteristics of a living thing before we know that something is a living thing or not a living thing. So all living things have cells, all living things reproduce, all living things contain DNA, and all living things sense and respond to the environment. They use energy, they also grow and develop. All living things have a level of organization. So all living things have cells. Sponges have many different specialized cells that run throughout the structure. For example, it has a muscle cells called the myocytes, which contract the sponge to allow the sponge to move. Also, we should know that all living things can respond and sense the environment. The sponge can sense predators. They can then also respond by contracting the surface layer, which reduces the area that might be exposed to the predators. If the fish is about to eat it, they can contract themselves and make themselves to be smaller. All living things have to reproduce asexually by either asexually or sexually. But the sponges does reproduce in both ways. It reproduces asexually by branching off. This is a small sponge. When it touches the ground, after some time, it starts to grow into a huge sponge like this. And also sometimes they might produce sperm, and the sperm is going to find the female egg cells, and after that it fertilizes the egg, and a new sponge starts to grow from there. All living things have DNA, so the DNA is like a blueprint of how to make new sponge. So the DNA contained in the sex cell, and this is the way the DNA looks like. So it's contained in all living things, no matter how small or big the organism is. And also, all living things uses energy to move by contracting the muscles. And when this happens, the organism is also moving. Some sponges can make the food by photosynthesis. In other words, have to absorb, like the video which I showed you before, nutrient from the water. And also, sponges absorb nutrient but allow water to flow through them. The sugar are produced by photosynthesis and extracted from the nutrients are reacted with oxygen, and that's what gives about respiration, which I already explained to you before. And also, all living things should grow, means to become from a small stature to a bigger and bigger stature. So this is called a mature sponge, from a new sponge to matured one. And also, we should know that we have a level of organization in all organisms. We start from the cell level to the tissue level to get to the last level. So if someone asks you, how do you test for the presence of carbon dioxide in organism, it's pretty easy. Now we're going to see how to test for the presence of carbon dioxide in what we exhale. When we breathe in oxygen or breathe out carbon dioxide. Now we have a bar here. It's trying to show how we can test for carbon dioxide in air or in what we exhale. So now it has a lot to do.
Called lime water. We showed you how to make lime water and dioxide is present by if carbon dioxide is present by using a chemical called lime water. We showed you how to make lime water in a previous video. We want to show the presence of carbon dioxide in our breath. You'll need a straw, lime water, 2 test tubes, and a funnel. Pour some lime water into each test tube. Take the straw and blow lightly into one of the test tubes. Do not suck. Watch the lime water. Take out the straw. Look at the difference. The lime water turns cloudy. This signifies that the carbon dioxide is present in your breath.
So that shows you that you have carbon dioxide in what you breathe in or what you breathe out. So this is a good way to test the presence of carbon dioxide in what you exhale. So I think this was really helpful. Thanks for listening.